Have to start by saying nothing but sympathy. Whatever the McCanns might or might not have done on that fateful night on the Algarve in Portugal, I'm sure if they had their time over, they would do it very, very differently. And earlier this week we were talking about this case because it was revealed through Sky News and their crime correspondent Martin Brunt that more funds will be made available to the team investigating the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, and it will take the sum spent to more than £11 million so far. But now on the forum, or rather the Facebook page, which is still a forum as well, the Facebook page that the Madeleine McCann team have set up, the parents have banned users from discussing whether parents should leave their children at home alone. Now, you will know, as a journalist, I'm not really in favour of censorship of any kind. So why would the parents seek to do that? In a way, because of the tragedy, because I'm sure they would accept it is a tragedy, even if they find the girl, and let's hope they do find the girl alive, she still will have endured an extraordinary number of years of separation from her parents, and it's not been good for them either. So why would they seek to ban that? Kate and Jerry McCann have been victims of vicious internet trolling, which is inexcusable. People claiming they were complicit in their daughter's disappearance while on holiday back in 2007, a little over 10 years ago. And I would have thought that's dancing on the wrong side of legality as well. Absolutely no proof of that whatsoever. Scotland Yard, as we say, has asked for more cash, and the family warned of trolls that feed on havoc. In a statement on the Facebook page for the Find Madeleine campaign, they say, quotes, "Please don't post your opinion on leaving children alone. Doing so will result in you being banned. No questions asked." Now, the statement is written by the campaign's unnamed webmaster, and it says banning users was not done on a whim. The page should be used only to offer support to the family. This is not a place for you to post your negative opinions about the McCann family. We are not a debate page. Do you know that a recent study found the couple were targeted by more than 150 abusive tweets a day? A day. Look, you can have all views you like about McCanns, and goodness knows we've discussed it down the years, and I've heard some pretty strong stuff about Kate and Jerry McCann. But would you really want to tweet them like that? You don't think they've suffered enough? But is it right that the subject of whether you should leave your children at home alone should be banned from this particular forum for discussion? Let's speak with Sonia Poulton, who's a journalist, social commentator, and presented McCann's The Untold Story of Madeleine McCann. How do you interpret this action, then? Good morning to you.
Morning, Nick. Well, it's very interesting because it's not actually a new story, but it's obviously because of various events this week, such as the suggestion that we may be putting more money into Operation Grange. It's surfaced again in the news, so that's quite interesting. Of course, we must be allowed freedom of speech, there's no doubt about it, not least because this is a story of great public interest. Operation Grange alone for a crime that didn't actually happen on British soil, but obviously happened in Portugal. 11 million plus from the taxpayer's purse. Then you have the private fund for Find Madeleine, which, between £3 and £4 million. So the public are heavily invested in this story and have every right, obviously, to make comments. And, having now researched this story for the last 4 years, and I was interested right from the get-go in it, as indeed many people are, because it's a unique story in many respects. It's not just as sad as it is. It's not just about a missing child. It involves so many other elements. But it is, it is a story that obviously the public are so very, very interested in. Yes. We must be allowed to comment on it. In terms of the issue of whether children should or shouldn't be left alone, I think that is a sort of no-brainer, really, isn't it? Of course.
When you say a no-brainer, which side of the debate, though?
Of course, children should never, ever be left alone. Absolutely.
No, but what about... So I'm so sorry. Can this be banned, though, from discussion on this particular site? Do you support their decision on that?
No, of course I don't, but I'm not surprised at all because it's more of a fan page than anything else. But I'd like to just pick up on something you said because, about the study that was recently done about the trolls, etc. Having researched the story, I can tell you it's divided into two, and they were actually named by Kate and Jerry McCann in the discussion, and they're known as the pro-McCanns and the anti-McCanns. And the idea being that the pro-McCanns are those who support the idea that Madeleine was abducted, and the anti-McCanns are those who say that Madeleine wasn't abducted. And the trolls are said to be the anti-McCanns. But I have to tell you, Nick, in my experience, absolutely some of the worst aggression actually comes from the side of the people who say that Madeleine was abducted and defend that idea. And we are allowed freedom of speech, and there are many anomalies in the story, and that's why people are so interested in discussing it. It's an absolutely fascinating case.
It is indeed a fascinating case. Come back to you, Sonia, for more in a moment. Listening to that at 10 after 8. Lynn Burnham, who is a stay-at-home mother and indeed a spokesperson for Mothers at Home Matter. Surely discussions about leaving children at home should be on a forum such as this. Morning to you.
Yes, good morning, Nick. I don't actually feel that... I think they're completely legit in...
Do you really? Isn't it a form of censorship?
But it's their website or it's their Facebook page. They can do what they want on that Facebook page. You don't have to allow, if it's yours, you set it up, you own it, you can do what you want on that. Listen, these people, you yourself have just said how appalling it is to receive tweet after tweet after tweet, day in, day out, absolutely trolling these people.
Hold on, discussion doesn't equal trolling, though, Lynn.
No, it doesn't, but there are other forums to talk about whether or not... Go on Mumsnet, go on NetMums...
But can you think of a case that brings into contrast so starkly as the McCann case as to whether children are safe left at home? If you are motivated to do it, golly, you can't think of a more classic example than Madeleine McCann, can you?
Well, yes, but actually she wasn't left at home, was she?
She was all right. She was left in an apartment. But you know the basic thrust is the same.
Well, yes and no. Yes, it is. She was left in an apartment, and I know many other families, maybe not recently, but certainly in the past when my children were younger, that they would have left their children in a room and they would have gone on and checked in them, and that would have been seen as not neglect. They would have just done it. It's really, really...
But you see, here we are. Even now, you and I are discussing it, and I'm thinking about when... Going back in time to when my children were that sort of age, there we are, we're having a healthy discussion. No one's insulting anybody. No one's trolling the McCanns. But if we were doing this through that forum, we wouldn't be able to do it. That can't be right.
But, Nick, there are other forums that you can talk about.
But I want to talk about it on that forum.
Well, yeah, get a life, sorry.
How many times have I heard that?
Yes, it's just, you know, leave these poor guys alone. You know, it really, you know, leaving children alone, no one should do it, not when there's any risk involved. No. Of course they shouldn't, but, you know, many parents, especially here, we're in the school holidays now.
Well, let's get a quick word from Sonia. People just shouldn't be doing it, Sonia, says Lynn. What would you say to that?
I mean, I found Lynn's argument absolutely ridiculous. I mean, hers is really based on the fact that she also indulged in a form of child neglect herself by leaving her child alone, and I do consider it child neglect, Nick, because the fact is that it's not just that a child could be stolen. In fact, that indeed is probably one of the last things that you would imagine to happen to a child when you leave them alone. But they could be frightened, they could choke, a fire could start, anything. Also, I'd like to take issue with the fact what Lynn said about the McCanns being trolled. They're not being trolled because the McCanns aren't on social media, so that in itself, it can't possibly work.
I think I said...
They're tweeted.
Sorry,
you just said they get tweeted.
Yes, but Lynn, have you really looked into this story? Because from the way that you're talking, it certainly sounds as if you haven't, and I have. And the truth is that there is a great deal to be said about this story, which I would assume that we probably can't say at this moment in time. But let me tell you, it's not really as clear-cut as you think it is. This whole idea of leave those poor guys alone, and I'm saying no disrespect to anybody at this moment in time, but the truth is the story is not clear-cut. We need to look into it more deeply. That page is absolutely the page where this should be discussed, because it's the official Find Madeleine page where people go to.
Let's get Lynn in. Lynn, your turn to get involved.
We have to agree to disagree. I'm not an expert. You phoned me up, you asked me to give an opinion very quickly this morning.
Yeah.
I don't believe that it's their site, they can do as they wish, and there are other forums to discuss leaving kids alone.
There absolutely are, Lynn, and actually if people really want to go and discuss the case, then please go to Justice for Madeleine on Facebook, and there they'll have free range to be able to discuss it in the way that it needs to be discussed.
All right, thank you to both my contributors. LBC is not endorsing that particular website. I've never had sight of it, but indeed it does add to greater knowledge. My thanks to Sonia Poulton, social commentator journalist. You wrote and presented McCanns, The Untold Story of Madeleine McCann. Lynn Burnham is a stay-at-home mother, and you're a spokesperson for Mothers at Home Matter. My thanks to both of you. The conversation continues with you. Is it right that that form of conversation is now no longer allowed in that forum?